You were listening to the Mark Petroni radio program, heard exclusively on News Talk Saga 960.
And we're back with more on News Talk Saga 960. So very glad that you could join us on this edition of the Mark Petroni Show. We have Miles Kristen on the line, coming to us from southern Wisconsin, and hoping to get your sense of the mood in Wisconsin right now. Miles, after the last week that you've had over there, it's just absolutely stunning, from, of course, the result of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, in which he was acquitted on all charges, so he's a free man. And now he, of course, is looking at suing everybody from the media to Joe Biden for smearing him as a white supremacist. And then, of course, you had that disaster involving the SUV, the individual who was behind it, taking that vehicle and appearing to use that as a weapon to murder a number of people. 5 people, I believe, is the latest death toll, and dozens of others were injured. 6 people now. And so that individual has been charged with intentionally killing these people, so intentional homicide. The state must be in a state of shock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this guy, this rapper, tattooed faced pedophile. I mean, that's what he was, a sex trafficking pedophile who admitted to sex trafficking a minor. And I believe he said he was in the state of Nevada. Talked about, quote, pimping out this 16-year-old on video. And, okay, it's like, so why wasn't he serving, if not life in jail, why wasn't he serving a long prison sentence? That alone. And then after that, there was an incident where he tried to run over the mother of his child with the very same car. And it ironically, or I don't know what word to describe it, but oddly enough, that same exact car was actually in one of his little rap videos. What I don't understand, what is so damn confusing, is that we have people who are advocating for very violent men who have committed violence against women. Like Jacob Blake, who the reason he was ever, wanted by the police was because he was accused of sexual assault, which that entire case has been completely dropped. I mean, with the Rittenhouse case, it all comes back to Jacob Blake allegedly committing this horrible assault on a woman, and that whole case has been completely dropped. And people went out and advocated for Jacob Blake and everything. And then in Milwaukee and in Madison here in Wisconsin, there have been incidences where these male activists have done horrible things to women, and then you literally have protesters trying to get them freed from jail when they get arrested, for something related, somehow barely related to activism. And it's like, why are we advocating for people who are really scumbags, and there are incidences. I mean, I guess kind of looking at this whole situation between Waukesha and what happened with Rittenhouse and everything. Yes, there are situations where innocent people, lawful people, have been killed by the police, and that goes beyond racial lines. There's white people and black people who have been innocent and killed by the police, and there is serious questions we need to ask about policing in America. But we're advocating now for basically, scumbags, and this guy who committed this act of violence, this mass murder in Waukesha. I mean, he had a long history of committing horrible acts of violence to people. I mean, he was already, facing these serious felony charges for trying to run a woman over with his car already, and he was out on something like $1,000 bond.
Wow, what a slime ball. Yeah, he's accused of plowing through a Christmas parade at high speed in Waukesha. I mean, some of the media there are just almost trying to make excuses for him, like he was leaving a violent situation or trying to get away from a knife fight.
There's always some ridiculous story that turns out to be not true. I mean, with the Jacob Blake case, the first thing we were told wasn't that he was being arrested for committing sexual assault. The first thing we were told was that, Jacob Blake was, he was breaking up a fight. No, that wasn't the case. And what is the story we're being told about this guy? Oh, he was just, fleeing the scene of some other stabbing or something he was being involved in. It's like, what? Like this. And the craziest part is I watched the footage from when the guy actually got arrested. He, I don't know, I mean, he destroyed his car in the process of killing all these people. And then he goes up to some random stranger's house, knocks on his door, unmasked. I'm just going to, all these people, all these situations. I mean, COVID never seems to matter in any of these situations. But he's like knocking on some stranger's door going, hey, I just called an Uber. My phone died. Can you call them or something? And this was all recorded on the guy's Ring camera. And then moments later, you see, a dozen squad cars pull up and arrest him. And I mean, it's just unbelievable that this guy was out on the streets. This has a lot to do with the prosecutor, a guy named Chisholm, or the DA, I should say, the Waukesha DA. This guy named, I believe it's John Chisholm, totally, holds responsibility for allowing this person to be out on the streets after committing, several acts of violence, including the fact that he was still in trouble for some, sex trafficking thing out in Nevada.
Brutal. Yeah, I mean, this guy's being referred to, this is Daryl Brooks is this rap artist's named, being referred in some periodicals, publications as a black supremacist. So it certainly looks, I mean, given the timing of it, that it was in retribution. That area, Waukesha, is pretty conservative. It's
extremely conservative. It's where a lot of the big name Republican politicians come out of. I mean, this is just days after the Rittenhouse thing. There's racists of all different types out there, and the guy did have a long history of racist posts. And, I do think that when you have a segment of society demonizing a whole other segment, saying that, these people are oppressors and they're responsible for everything that's wrong with society, when it's more complicated than that, I think the idea of mowing through people, it becomes, easier for somebody to commit an act of violence when they think that, these people are oppressors or something like that. A bunch of white conservatives. I mean, and this, in the end, this isn't about race. This is about culture, that, you have people that can just basically live their life being complete deadbeat losers, have, walk around with tattoos on their face, not take care of their kids. And that, like I said, that goes beyond race. There's white people, there's black people, there's people of every background that live their life as total, complete losers. And this guy was just an absolute scumbag. I mean, he should have been in jail, in prison from the first serious violation,
How do you account for CNN and MSNBC trying to make excuses for this guy?
When they can't even his or her, they have to be afraid that they might, offend the potential pronoun of the murderer. I mean, they knew who this guy was as soon as it happened, because, I mean, within an hour or so, he was arrested and his name was on the radar of the police scanner. I mean, the name was out there, but it took the media 2 days to identify this guy.
Yeah, no.
I mean, they don't even want to refer to this.
That's right. I mean, there was an interview with...
Sorry, I keep interrupting, but they don't even want to refer this as a terrorist attack.
That's right.
or as murder. They just want to call it the incident. An SUV killed these people. It's like, no, this guy killed these people.
Yeah. And then when they were interviewing a guy who was black, and he described the person behind the wheel of that SUV as a black guy with dreadlocks. They cut out, it's like, oh, we can't have that. I mean, it's just amazing. Just what's going on. It's just nuts. I mean, you must be talking to people about this. I mean, what's the buzz in Wisconsin where you are? You're not that far from Madison. How far are you from Waukesha anyway?
So Waukesha is basically, to describe Waukesha is outside of Milwaukee County. So, I mean, and then, I'm from Racine originally, which is just to the south. I mean, literally, you've got Kenosha, which is on the Illinois border, and then right above it is Racine. Right above that is Milwaukee. And with all of those places, they're both cities and counties. There's the, city Milwaukee, county of Milwaukee, so forth, so forth. So, I mean, it's all southeastern Wisconsin. And, I mean, just, talking with my coworkers this week, like everybody, is just blown away by this. Can't believe this is such a tragedy. I mean, just disgusting. I mean, people losing their relatives right before Thanksgiving at a Christmas parade. I mean, there's I believe one child that just died. There's other children that are in critical condition. There's 40 people that were hit. And I want to say 3 or 4 of the women who died was this group called the Dancing Grannies. They were all in their 70s and 80s. I mean, it's insane.
Brutal. I mean, how does the state now deal with it? I mean, obviously you've been hearing from the governor and people like that. You've had devastating events now. I mean, I'm incredibly relieved that the Rittenhouse was acquitted. I think it just shows that you've got honest judges in the United States, which is great. But unfortunately, I think he could still face federal charges on whatever trumped up offenses that the Biden administration. I mean, they're targeting this guy, and not because he deserves it, but because he's of his politics, his views. He's obviously a conservative. He's a freedom-fighting guy, and he shot a couple of people who. Well, one of whom I believe was a convicted pedophile as well. It's like the streets are littered with these.
Rosenbaum, yeah. Who the actor Mark Ruffalo, the actor, was just defending. You and I differ a little on this situation because, and I actually was listening to Matt Walsh, and he made a good point, which was that Rittenhouse shouldn't have been there. Had the governor done his job. I would argue that. The governor failed to put in the state guard. The president, I think, could have put in the National Guard. And so I think there's a lot of politicians who allowed the situation in Kenosha to get as crazy as it did. Like I said earlier, it all comes back to a man named Jacob Blake allegedly committing a sexual assault, him then, having a warrant out, him going for a knife, getting tased, still going for a knife, trying to drive off in a car with kids in it after he committed, a half a dozen crimes. I mean, Jacob Blake is the one responsible for the entire situation in Kenosha. And, he gets shot while he was, trying to grab a knife. The city goes up in flames. The politicians didn't do anything to stop it. I would argue, while Rittenhouse technically didn't bring the gun over state lines and all the, he shouldn't have been in that situation. But at the same time, the politicians should have been preventing these things from being on fire. And I didn't realize until just a week ago or so that footage that Rittenhouse was actually shot at. That was so hidden by the media. The fact that somebody actually fired a weapon at him.
It was hidden by the FBI. They knew that they knew that he'd been shot. My understanding, Miles, is that it was the FBI had that area. You talk about the drone footage.
There's some footage on the ground where you can see somebody running at Rittenhouse firing a weapon. I didn't know that until just recently, and I wouldn't call Rittenhouse a hero And I understand that, especially the first shot when he was acting, that is self-defense. If someone shoots a weapon at you, I would argue he shouldn't have been there. But, the second one, when the second person who was shot, hit
Grosskreutz,
Rittenhouse's. No, the second person.
Right, okay. Rosenbaum?
No. Rosenbaum was the first person who was trying to grab his gun, and then the second person hit him with a skateboard. Now, in all fairness to that individual who has passed, like maybe he thought that Rittenhouse was an active shooter and he was trying to stop an active shooter, and that's why it's pretty stupid to still go after somebody who has a gun with a skateboard. And, everybody in Kenosha was breaking curfew. Everybody, and a lot of those people were rioting. I mean, Rosenbaum was even filmed trying to push a burning dumpster into a gas station.
That's right.
I mean, a lot of these people were involved in rioting. They shouldn't have been there. And basically what Kenosha comes down to is a lot of people getting involved and thinking that they're doing something noble and not knowing the full circumstances of what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Miles, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate this. Stay in touch on this story, okay?
Will do. Thank you for having me.
Miles Kristen coming to us from southern part of Wisconsin. And we're going to take a brief timeout commercial break. Back with more on News Talk Saga 960 after this.
Stream us live at saga960am.ca.